Illusion. A false idea or belief, especially about somebody or about a situation. For example, under the illusion that.
Image. A picture, photograph, or statue that represents somebody/something. For example, most simple leaflets will include text and images.
Impact.
Impact. The powerful effect that something has on something. For example, a positive for negative and adverse impact.
Impact.
Impact. The powerful effect that something has on something. For example, a positive for negative and adverse impact.
Impressed.
Impressed. Admiring somebody/something because you think they are particularly good, interesting, etc. For example, I must admit I am impressed.
Impression. An idea, a feeling, or an opinion that you get about somebody/something, or that somebody/something gives you. For example, my first impression of him was favorable. Imprison. To put somebody in a prison or another place from which they cannot escape. For example, be imprisoned for something.
Imprisonment. The act of putting somebody in a prison or another place from which they cannot escape, the state of being there. For example, to be sentenced to life imprisonment for murder.
Improve.
Improve. To become better than before, to make something or somebody better than before. For example, overall the situation has improved dramatically.
Inch. A unit for measuring length or height, equal to 2.5 for centimeters. There are 12 inches in a foot. For example, she's a few inches taller than me.
Inclusion. The fact of including somebody/something, the fact of being included. For example, his inclusion in the team is in doubt.
Indication. A remark or sign that shows that something is happening or what somebody is thinking or feeling. For example, indication of something.
Induce. To persuade or influence somebody to do something. For example, nothing would induce me to take the job. Inflict. To make something suffer something unpleasant. For example, inflict something upon something.
Influence. The effect that somebody or something has on the way a person thinks or behaves, or on the way that something works or develops. For example, his early work shows the influence of Cézanne and Matisse. Influence. The effect that somebody or something has on the way a person thinks or behaves, or on the way that something works or develops. For example, his early work shows the influence of Cézanne and Matisse.
Influential. Having a lot of influence on something. For example, a highly influential book.
Inform. To tell somebody about something, especially in an official way. For example, inform somebody.
Information.
Information. Facts or details about somebody/something. For example, a piece of information.
Inherent.
Inherent. That is a basic or permanent part of somebody/something and that cannot be removed. For example, the difficulties inherent in a study of this type.
Inherit. To receive money, property, etc. from somebody when they die. For example, inherit something from somebody.
Injure. To harm yourself or somebody else physically, especially in an accident. For example, He injured his knee playing hockey.
Injury.
Injury. Harm done to a person's or an animal's body, for example in an accident. For example, 2 people sustained minor injuries.
Insect.
Insect. Any small creature with 6 legs and a body divided into 3 parts. Insects usually also have wings. Ants, bees, and flies are all insects. For example, most birds spend most of the day eating insects.
Inside.
Inside. On or to the inside. For example, she shook it to make sure there was nothing inside.
Inside.
Inside. On or to the inside. For example, she shook it to make sure there was nothing inside. Insist. To demand that something happen or that somebody agree to do something. For example, I didn't really want to go but he insisted.
Inspect. To look closely at something/somebody, especially to check that everything is as it should be. For example, inspect something/somebody.
Inspection. An official visit to a school, factory, etc. in order to check that rules are being obeyed and that standards are acceptable. For example, regular inspections are carried out at the prison.
Inspiration. The process that takes place when somebody sees or hears something that causes them to have exciting new ideas or makes them want to create something, especially in art, music, or literature. For example, dreams can be a rich source of inspiration for an artist.
Inspire. To give somebody the desire, confidence, or enthusiasm to do something well. For example, inspire somebody. Instruct. To tell somebody to do something, especially in a formal or official way. For example, instruct somebody to do something.
Insult.
Insult. A remark or an action that is said or done in order to offend somebody. For example, the crowd were shouting insults at the police.
Insult.
Insult. A remark or an action that is said or done in order to offend somebody. For example, the crowd were shouting insults at the police.
Intelligence. The ability to learn, understand, and think in a logical way about things, the ability to do this well. For example, a person of high average low intelligence.
Intelligent. Good at learning, understanding, and thinking in a logical way about things, showing this ability. For example, a highly intelligent child,